that day.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are really getting into the weeds on one of the most, well, complex and often misunderstood prophecies out there.
Yeah.
The Mark of the Beast, 6666.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not just talking general ideas. We've got some highly specific source material here, interpretations of Revelation, Daniel, related texts that actually lay out a very detailed, specific timeline.
Yeah, and what makes this material so, well, compelling and maybe a bit intimidating is how precise it tries to be. It zooms right in on one core question. When? When exactly is this 6666 mark enforced, and who are the specific players making it happen?
So our job today is really to synthesize that timeline. We're looking across Revelation 13, 17, 19, trying to define not just who the beast is, but this very specific 42-month window. That's the period where his control mechanism, the mark, is actually operational.
Okay, so our mission then is to kind of cut through the hype around the number itself and really understand the strict economic, political, and spiritual conditions that have to line up for the mark to even become a thing. According to these sources, this isn't some vague threat hanging over history.
No, not at all.
It's a tool of, well, pure conditional tyranny. It's tied directly to economic survival. Can you buy food? Can you get water?
The absolute basics.
And that enforcement, crucially, only happens during this very specific fixed period of 42 months.
That fixed duration is every day. It's the anchor point. And to really understand the enforcement, you first have to get your head around the 4 distinct entities involved. Because they're alliances and then they're betrayals.
Yeah.
Well, that's what defines the start and the end of that 42-month tyranny.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this cast of characters then. We often just hear the beast singular, but these sources paint a much more complex picture, like a hierarchy, both institutions and individuals.
It's layered.
So 4 primary entities. Let's start with the purely secular power, the political machine. This is called the Red Beast. What do the sources say this actually is?
Okay, so the Red Beast. It's identified as the world superpower that ultimately takes control. The global top dog, basically. It's defined specifically as the world beast government.
World beast government.
Yeah. Think of it as the non-ideological, purely political foundation. It controls the military, the global systems, the infrastructure, the economic levers. Worldwide, it's just raw global governmental power.
Got it. So that's the political engine. Now, what about the ideology? The religious or maybe spiritual core. This is defined as the harlot Babylon. That's a really specific term in these sources, isn't it? Why so specific?
It is incredibly specific.
Yeah.
And the sources really push back against just generalizing it. They explicitly name the harlot Babylon as the Babylonian Roman papacy.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And the reasoning they give leans heavily on historical interpretations, geopolitical readings of prophetic geography. It's quite detailed. Now, this structure, this religious entity, it's also seen as synonymous with the individual figure who takes charge, the son of perdition. So the harlot Babylon is the institution, the power structure that kind of gives rise to and is then controlled by this single tyrannical individual.
And that's the link to the number 666, right? The sources connect that number directly to this person.
Absolutely, spot on. The scripture says it's the number of a man. And these sources confirm, yes, 666 is defined very specifically as the number of a man and explicitly the personal number of the son of perdition.
Okay.
So the mark itself is tied directly to worship of and obedience to this specific individual, but only during his reign. Okay, so just to recap, Red Beast is the global government machine. Son of perdition, who arises from or controls the harlot Babylon structure, is the religious/individual leader who wants to take over that machine.
Right. And when they team up, that's when you get the tyranny operating during those 42 months.
That unified system is absolutely critical. It's called the Sea Beast. Remember that from Revelation 13?
That's the synthesis. It's described as the harlot Babylon riding the Red Beast. So, put simply, the Sea Beast is the world beast government after it's been seized and is being run by the son of perdition. So it's a merger, a hostile takeover almost.
Pretty much, yeah. This combined centralized power where global secular authority is under the personal thumb of this religious figure, that specific setup has to be in place before the mark of the beast can even be enforced.
That really clarifies the distinction. The Sea Beast isn't permanent. It's this temporary, unholy alliance.
Okay, but global tyranny needs boots on the ground, right?
Right.
If the son of perdition is the CEO, who are the managers? Who's enforcing this stuff locally?
That's the job of the Earth Beast. Also identified specifically as the false prophet.
Okay.
The sources define this entity, or maybe entities, as the priests of the world beast religion. Their role isn't setting policy, it's compulsion, it's getting compliance. Think of them as the shock troops of this new religious political regime. And what are their specific jobs during this time? What do they actually do?
Two main things, according to the sources. First, they compel people to create an idol or an image for the first beast, that's the sea beast, or really for the son of perdition himself. This image becomes the focus point for mandatory worship.
Mandatory worship.
Yeah. And second, they are responsible for enforcing that worship and enforcing the receiving of the mark. They use systems of religious police, execution squad.
Execution squad?
Yeah. They ensure compliance right down to the street level. They make absolutely sure that nobody can participate in the controlled economy, buying, selling, without having that mark.
So the false prophet basically uses the apparatus of a new centralized world religion to enforce the rules dictated by the son of perdition, who in turn is controlling the political and military power of the red beast. It's like a terrifyingly efficient closed-loop system.
Total tyranny, exactly.
But this whole system, the sea-beast merger, it can't just pop up overnight on a quiet Tuesday, can it? I mean, the sources must describe some pretty major global chaos that allows this to even happen.
Oh, absolutely. That's precisely the conclusion the sources draw. The rise of the sea beast and the enforcement of the mark, they aren't gradual things. They're ushered in by unprecedented global collapse.
Right.
Designed, it seems, to just break the will of humanity.
Wow. The sources are really definitive here. There's this final prophetic period. They call it the last 1 week. And it cannot begin until 3 big things happen. 1, the sea beast, that combined entity appears. 2, the son of perdition successfully takes total global control. And 3, crucially, the son of perdition sits in the temple. That's the abomination of desolation. Okay, that third point, sitting in the temple, that's a huge theological and political statement, but the level of crisis needed for points 1 and 2, it sounds like something so vast it would just erase any possibility of organized resistance from, existing countries.
Exactly. It has to be that big.
So let's get into that sequence of collapse. What are these horrific preconditions that sort of till the soil for the beast system?
The sources lay it out in 4 distinct sequential stages. It starts with a massive societal breakdown, the kind that makes people desperate for any kind of order. So stage 1 is this initial widespread mass death.
Mass death from what? It's attributed to 4 specific things happening kind of simultaneously. War, famine, pestilence, so like pandemics, major infectious diseases, and government oppression.
Wow. The 4 horsemen, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. And the result is horrifying. According to the sources, 1/4 of the entire Earth population dies in this first stage.
1/4. Okay, let's just pause on that. If we use round numbers, say 8 billion people, that's 2 billion people dying right at the start.
2 billion, yeah. That's not just a statistic. Every political system, every social structure, every economy on the planet would be instantly shattered. It's unimaginable. It is. And the chaos from stage 1, it just flows directly into stage 2. Ecological devastation. This is described as a severe, targeted global crisis focused on the very ability to sustain life. The source material details the reduction of 1/3 of key life resources. 1/3 of what specifically?
Agricultural produce, seafood, drinking water, water for agriculture, and even sunlight. A 1/3 reduction across the board.
Wait, hang on. 1/3 of the sunlight? What could even cause that? Are we talking massive sustained volcanic eruptions, some kind of atmospheric collapse?
The sources don't specify the exact mechanism, but the effect is planetary. Losing 1/3 of the sunlight, that devastates agriculture globally. Losing 1/3 of the drinkable water guarantees dehydration, disease.
Massive famine is inevitable. Absolutely. A profound food crisis. And the sources describe the immediate social impact. Widespread starvation, obviously, but also people literally killing each other out of desperation for scraps. The text uses this phrase, love cooling down. It suggests a complete breakdown of community, of empathy, as basic survival instinct just takes over everything. Just brutal. Okay, so after this level of physical ruin, environmental collapse, the sources talk about a psychological breakdown next, right? Stage 3, the 5-month torment. What's the purpose of this specific period of suffering?
It seems to be understood as a kind of focused punishment and also psychological conditioning. It targets people who don't have the seal of God. So those who aren't divinely protected or prepared somehow, they suffer 5 months of what's described as scorpion-like torment.
Scorpion-like torment. What does that mean? Is it physical pain? Mental?
The sources describe it as pain so severe, and it could be physical, mental, spiritual, maybe all 3, that the people suffering actively want to die to escape it. They seek death.
But they can't. The sources say suicide is impossible during this time.
That's what they state, yeah. Suicide is rendered impossible. The interpretation seems to lean towards some kind of divine control over the process of death itself during those 5 months. The pain is inescapable, relentless, designed to break people down mentally. But the release of death is denied.
Why? What's the point of that level of cruelty?
Well, it seems to serve a dual purpose in the narrative. One, it demonstrates overwhelming power, whether it's the beast's power being showcased or a higher power allowing it. And two, it shatters any last shred of human resilience or defiance. Imagine 5 months of agony you can't escape. It would create a global population that's utterly traumatized, broken, and basically willing to submit to any authority, any system that promises to make the suffering stop.
It sounds like a deliberate braking mechanism, programming the survivors for total submission, wiping out any internal capacity to resist.
That seems to be the implication, yes.
And then, even after that, there's still one more wave of mass death described. Yes, stage 4, the 200 million cavalry. After the 5 months of torment finally end, the sources say 4 angels are released from the Euphrates River area. They lead an army defined symbolically or literally as 200 million strong, and this army proceeds to kill an additional 1/3 of the population that's still left.
Okay, let's try and grasp the scale of this demographic collapse again, according to these sources. Started at 8 billion, lost 14 in stage 1, that's 2 billion dead, leaving 6 billion, then ecological collapse and torment. Then lose 13 of the remaining 6 billion. That's another 2 billion dead.
Right. So if you follow the source's rough calculations, start with 8 billion, lose 14, then lose 13 of what's left after subsequent disasters. The total estimated death toll across these 4 stages comes out to approximately 5.3 billion people.
5.3 billion people dead.
Yeah.
The world population is currently around 8 billion, so we're talking about only maybe 2.7 billion survivors left on the entire planet.
Roughly, yes. That's the estimate derived from the source figures. And those 2.7 billion, I mean, after witnessing and surviving that, there'd be no recognizable countries left, no global economy, no rule of law, just traumatized, starving, thirsty individuals scattered across a ruined planet.
And as the critical point the sources hammer home, the beast system, whether it causes these disasters directly or just exploits them, uses this utter devastation to seize total control. The immense loss, the famine, the plagues, the torment. It's all conditioning for the survivors.
So when the sea beast, the son of Perdition running the world government, finally steps forward and promises order, promises food, promises water,
the survivors will rush to worship him, to follow him. Because survival at that point has become the only thing that matters. They become utterly dependent on the very tyranny that orchestrated, or at least benefited from, their suffering.
The collapse creates the desperate demand for the tyrant who promises relief. It's a horrifying setup, and this is what finally allows that specific 42-month period of mark enforcement to begin.
Exactly. The stage is finally set.
Okay, so let's shift focus now. We're into the 42 months. Let's talk about the precise mechanics, the duration, how the mark actually operates during this time. Right, this is the timing lock. The sources are incredibly insistent on this. The mark of the beast, 666, is strictly enforced for exactly 42 months. Not 41, not 43, 42. And that number, 42 months, pops up elsewhere in prophecy, right?
It does. It's equated directly with 1,260 days in some passages, and also with the phrase a time, times, and half a time, which is generally interpreted as 3.5 years. So 42 months equals 1,260 days equals 3.5 years. It's a very specific, defined period.
Why the obsession with that exact number, do the sources say?
Because the duration of the mark's enforcement is mathematically tied, absolutely locked, to the reign of the son of Perdition. Well, he is in control of the world beast government. That specific sea beast entity.
Okay. And the sources stress this repeatedly. The moment those 42 months are up, the enforcement of the 666 mark stops. It ends, period. So if you were hypothetically living through that time, you'd know exactly how long this specific economic pressure would last. It's not indefinite.
Precisely. It's a defined tyranny with a visible, known end date. That's a crucial detail.
Okay, so the enforcement mechanism itself, we know it's about control, but how does the son of Perdition actually use this system to rule those, 2.7 billion terrified, starving survivors?
It's total economic warfare, but focused on the most basic biological needs. The mark itself is received, as the texts say, on the right hand or on the forehead. And the condition for getting it is very simple, very stark.
What is it?
You must worship the beast. Specifically, you must worship the son of perdition himself.
And if you refuse that word...
Immediate exclusion from the economy, which at this point means exclusion from life itself.
Because the sources state clearly, citing Revelation 13.17, that only those with the mark can engage in buying and selling. Me in the text. Okay, but buying and selling what? Luxury goods?
No, necessities.
Yeah.
The power behind this sanction comes from the fact that the son of perdition, through the red beast's global control, has seized complete military control over all global water resources and all remaining food supplies and provisions.
So, he controls the water taps and the global pantry.
Essentially, yes. So, to buy the absolute necessities you need to survive, water to drink, food to eat, you must first worship the beast, demonstrate your loyalty, and then receive the 666 mark as proof.
This isn't a subtle pressure. It's literal starvation and thirst used as a weapon of compliance.
It's the ultimate coercion.
The sources must conclude that many, probably most, people faced with that choice, worship or die of thirst, will choose survival.
They do. It's presented as the final, terrible trade-off. People are essentially forced to exchange their spiritual life, their allegiance to anything else, for immediate physical survival. The source material is quite clear that the vast majority of those surviving 2.7 billion will receive the mark.
Not necessarily out of genuine belief or loyalty.
No, mostly out of desperate need, sheer biological imperative.
The enforcement of this must be absolutely brutal during those 42 months. This brings us back to the earth beasts, the false prophet figure. They're the ones actually making sure people comply.
Yes, the false prophet system is the engine of oppression on the ground. They're the ones who force the creation of that idol of the beast and then enforce the mandatory worship of it.
And how do they enforce it? Propaganda, social pressure.
More direct than that. They deploy these religious police forces, like a paramilitary group, focused solely on ideological and economic compliance. And these units are explicitly used to execute anyone who refuses to worship the idol or the beast.
So every single day for 42 months, the choice is conform, take the mark, or face immediate execution.
Yeah, it's the stark reality presented in the sources for that period. Conformity or martyrdom.
But here's where it gets really complex, almost paradoxical. While this absolute tyranny is at its peak, the sources also describe an active, sometimes armed, and divinely protected resistance operating at the exact same time.
Yes, a period of intense spiritual and physical battle. The sources present this resistance as absolutely vital to the whole prophetic timeline. They are the counterforce operating within that exact same 42-month window.
Who are they?
Well, first, you have the two witnesses. They are described as prophesying, speaking out, warning people against the mark, against the beast, against the false prophet, for the exact duration 1,260 days, which is 42 months.
And the sources give them some pretty immense powers, don't they? They aren't just street preachers hiding in alleys. Not at all. Their role is described as multifaceted protection and active battle. They apparently have the power to protect the faithful saints. The sources mention them using fire symbolic or literal against their enemies. Enemies meaning?
Likely the enforcement squads of the false prophet, the religious police. The witnesses actively destroy beast forces that try to harm the saints.
Okay, so defensive power. What else?
They also reportedly have the power to turn water into blood and to stop the rain shutting the sky. These sound like destructive powers used defensively, maybe to cripple the logistics or the water supply of the beast's regime in certain areas, protecting specific groups of believers.
So they're actively fighting back against a totalitarian system for the entire 42 months while they prophesy.
That's the picture painted, yes. Engaged in active combat.
And there's a second group involved in resistance too, right? The 144,000.
Yes, the 144,000. They are defined as individuals who are prepared, the term used is sealed, before all these troubles even kick off.
Prepared how?
The sources stress their importance as a highly specialized force. They bear God's image, apparently. And during the 42 months, they are described as actively destroying the forces of the beast while simultaneously protecting the saints. They're depicted almost like military and spiritual special agents, prepared for this specific conflict, fighting on the ground alongside the supernatural protection offered by the two witnesses.
Okay, so let me try to get this straight. During these exact same 42 months, you have this incredibly effective totalitarian system enforcing the mark, controlling all food and water, and executing anyone who resists. And at the same time, you have the two witnesses actively fighting back with supernatural power, and the 144,000 fighting and destroying the beast's forces and protecting people. How do the sources explain this? How can both things be true simultaneously? How can there be both widespread martyrdom and effective protection?
It's presented as a paradox inherent to that specific time. The interpretation seems to be that martyrdom is often a choice, a testament of faith under that extreme pressure, while protection is a strategic necessity for the ongoing spiritual and physical war.
So some are protected, some aren't.
It appears so. The sources confirm that martyr of saints, apostasy, giving in, protection, and battle are all happening concurrently, side by side, during those 42 months. Some saints are actively shielded by the witnesses and the 144,000, maybe for strategic reasons, maybe in specific protected zones, maybe for specific periods. Others, perhaps those caught in isolated areas, or those who make a very public defiant stand, are captured and executed as martyrs by the beast's forces.
So it's just total spiritual and physical war footing for 3.5 years. Constant, immediate life-or-death stakes everywhere.
That's the picture, yes. Complete chaos and conflict, but constrained within that fixed 42 months time frame.
Okay, but here's where the narrative takes another fascinating turn, according to your outline. The end of the 42 months. It isn't marked by the resistance finally winning and overthrowing the beast.
No, it isn't.
It ends because the beast system itself implodes. It turns on itself.
Exactly. The tyranny of the son of perdition doesn't end because the saints defeat him militarily. It ends because his own political vehicle, the red beast, turns against him. This sudden, violent pivot happens right around the conclusion of the 7 plagues.
Ah, the 7 plagues. What do the sources say about those? Are they like the earlier stages of collapse, or are they different?
They seem distinct. They are presented as far more devastating, more targeted, signaling a final divine wrath, not just preparatory chaos. The sources indicate these 7 plagues descend upon the earth, specifically hitting those who took the mark after the 42-month period is largely over, or perhaps right at its very end.
And the result?
The earth is described as being almost ruined by this point. I mean, it's already endured the initial 4 stages, 42 months of intense warfare and oppression, and then bam, these final targeted judgments hit. And it seems these plagues act as the final catalyst for the red beast's betrayal. Okay, let's analyze that betrayal. It's fascinating. The political power, the red beast, has been enabling the religious power, the harlots of perdition, for 42 months. They achieved total global control together in the sea beast entity. Why, right after achieving this absolute power, does the secular arm suddenly turn violently on the religious arm and destroy it? Wouldn't that risk throwing everything back into anarchy? That's a great question. The sources seem to suggest a critical shift in motivation, or maybe calculation, on the part of the red beast. Remember, the red beast represents pure political power, the world government itself. It grows resentful, perhaps, of being ridden, controlled by the religious figurehead.
The harlot riding the beast.
Exactly. Their initial union, the sea beast, was purely utilitarian, right? The son of perdition provided the ideology, the spiritual coercion, the mark needed to control the traumatized masses. The red beast provided the muscle, the infrastructure.
Yeah.
But once the 7 plagues hit,
Yeah.
the red beast likely looks at the son of perdition and realizes he's no longer an asset, he's now a liability. The plagues demonstrate that this supposed God King doesn't have ultimate divine power. Maybe he's even attracting divine wrath. So the red beast decides to cut him loose, seize power for itself, and reestablish a purely secular, non-ideological control over whatever is left of the ruined world.
So it's basically a military coup within the dystopia, a secular coup against the theocratic tyranny.
That's a good way to put it.
How exactly does the red beast get rid of the harlot Babylon? The sources are quite graphic, aren't they?
They are. They reference Revelation 17, verse 16 directly. It describes a brutal, comprehensive takedown. The red beast's power structure throws off the harlot Babylon, destroys her, eats her flesh, and burns her with fire. Metaphorically, presumably?
The interpretation presented is largely metaphorical, yes, describing a swift political and military purge. Eating her flesh is seen as stripping her of all her financial power, her structural assets, absorbing her power base into the secular state. Burning her with fire suggests the total annihilation of the religious system and its ideology, completely removing the reason for the mark's enforcement in the first place.
And the single act that brings the entire 606 mark regime to an immediate absolute halt?
The world beast government, the red beast, now acting alone, kills the individual figurehead. They execute the son of perdition.
Wow. So the ultimate tyrant, the one demanding worship, is killed by his own political machine right after his fixed 42-month term expires.
Precisely at the conclusion, yes. And this act of, well, regicide within the beast system, it immediately shifts the entire power dynamic, doesn't it?
Fundamentally. Instantly, because the son of perdition is now dead, and the sea beast entity, that merger, is therefore dismantled. The false prophet system, the earth beast, remember, they were the enforcement arm for the religious leader.
Yeah.
They immediately stop working for the dead son of perdition.
And who do they work for instead?
They switch allegiance. They begin working for the now independent red beast, the purely secular world beast government.
Okay, so the enforcement mechanism changes its loyalty.
Right. And the significance is huge. Because the son of perdition is dead, worship of him is obviously no longer enforced. And the 666 mark, being specifically his number, the number of that now dead man, it ceases to be mandatory. It ceases to be required for buying and selling. Its function ends the moment the political structure executes him.
Which is why the sources are so absolutely definitive about the time frame.
Exactly. The enforcement of the 666 mark is strictly, absolutely constrained to the 42-month reign of the son of perdition. Once he's gone, the mark's power is gone.
So the element of the prophecy that probably inspires the most fear, that 6666 control system, is, according to these interpretations, absolutely temporary, tied to one specific figure and one specific 42-month period.
Temporary, yes. And contingent on that specific political structure being in place. Once the red beast kills the son of perdition and takes sole control, the 6666 mark mechanism is finished.
Okay, what's the final conclusion then? What happens according to the source timeline after this violent political pivot, after the son of perdition is dead?
The sources tie the very next events directly to the resurrection and the second coming. So the 42 months conclude, the power structure shifts violently, the son of perdition is killed. Then the two witnesses who finished their 1260-day prophecy are apparently resurrected. And following their resurrection, Jesus Christ returns in the air. So just to be crystal clear on the sequence, Christ's return happens after the 42 months of 666 mark enforcement have ended, and after the son of perdition has been killed by the red beast. That is the precise sequence detailed in these particular sources, yes. His return follows the internal collapse of the son of perdition's reign.
And upon returning,
the Lord then raises up all the martyrs, those killed for refusing the mark, and the witnesses who stood against the beast. The result, according to this interpretation, is that only the wicked remain physically on earth. That is, those who willingly took the 666 mark and are now living under the purely secular rule of the red beast.
And what happens to them?
They are left to face the final, uncontested phase of judgment, which the sources identify as the pouring out of the 7 vials of God's wrath. That's seen as the final punishment reserved for those who align themselves with the beast system.
The level of chronological detail in these sources is, well, it's staggering. It really transforms the whole prophecy from this kind of vague, timeless threat into a series of highly specific, sequential events with clear start and end points.
It does. It demands a very linear reading of those specific chapters in Revelation.
Okay, let's try to quickly synthesize this complex timeline one last time for you listeners.
Okay. It kicks off with the necessary precondition, profound global catastrophe. Unimaginable death tolls, 14 of the population gone, then massive ecological ruin, then a horrific 5-month torment, then another 13 of survivors killed. We're talking not maybe 5.3 billion deaths, leaving a small, desperate, traumatized remnant of humanity.
Right.
Utter devastation creating desperation.
This catastrophe enables the rise of the sea beast entity. That's the temporary merger of the political world government, the red beast, being controlled, ridden by the religious ruler, the son of perdition linked to the harlot Babylon structure.
That specific combined entity is key.
That sea beast entity then enforces the 6666 mark. How? Through absolute economic control, you must worship the son of perdition to buy the water and food he now controls. And this enforcement lasts for exactly 42 months. Precisely 42 months. And that period is defined by both things happening at once. Forced martyrdom for those who refuse the mark, and active divine protection and literal battle being waged by the resistance, the 2 witnesses with their powers, and the 144,000 fighting force.
Simultaneously, yes. Martyrdom and protection side by side.
And then the entire 42-month period concludes abruptly. It's bookended by the 7 plagues, which seem to trigger an internal civil war within the beast system. The political state, the red beast, turns on and kills the religious ruler, the son of perdition.
Right. The secular power purges the religious power.
And that act instantly ends the enforcement of the 666 mark, dismantles the sea beast merger, and happens immediately before the return of Christ and the resurrection of all the martyrs and witnesses.
That's the sequence laid out. So the core finding, really, according to these specific sources, is that the mark of the beast isn't some general permanent feature of history or commerce or technology.
Right.
It's presented as a very specific tool used for a fixed temporary period of tyranny. It's the instrument of one specific individual, the son of Perdition, operational for precisely 42 months, and its implementation relies entirely on that preceding catastrophic collapse of civilization.
It completely shifts the focus, doesn't it? Away from trying to guess, is this chip the mark? Is that technology the mark?
Yeah, it moves away from that.
And focuses instead on recognizing the incredibly complex, catastrophic geopolitical and ecological prerequisites that, according to these sources, must occur before that 42-month window can even open.
Absolutely. And if we connect this back to the resistance for a final thought, the source material really emphasizes something interesting. It says that both the beast to be destroyed and the image bearing 144,000 who will destroy it must both be prepared and present for that final period, the last 1 week, to actually commence.
So the preparation of the good guys is just as critical a precursor event as the preparation of the bad guys.
It seems so. The readiness of the resistance is presented as a necessary condition for the end-time sequence to even begin.
That raises a really powerful final question for you, the listener, to think about. If the preparation of the resistance, the 144,000, is just as critical as the rise of the tyranny itself, what do these sources imply about what it actually means for individuals to be prepared for such a time, especially before any of these huge catastrophic events even start?
Well, the sources stress that this preparation isn't passive. It's not just about knowing the timeline. It involves being actively sealed, being image-bearing. It suggests a kind of readiness that goes way beyond just academic study of prophecy, meaning perhaps a fundamental spiritual readiness, a resilience, an internal fortitude to resist a system, a totalitarian system, that will eventually offer you instant physical survival food, water, safety, in exchange for total spiritual submission. And that kind of preparation, the sources strongly suggest, isn't something you can just suddenly start when the plagues begin falling.
It's not a last-minute decision.
No. It's depicted as a state of being ready for that battle, ready for that protection, grounded in something deeper, long before the sea beast even appears on the world stage.
A truly provocative and maybe critical thought to consider as we move beyond just generalized prophecy into what these sources frame as targeted, necessary preparation. You've been well informed. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.